Hey, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I'm Michael Pachter. You can find me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. If you are watching this real time, it's because you are a subscriber to SIFTD or because you're a subscriber to YouTube. That gets us paid. Another way to get us paid is to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. We have a brief video that explains how to do it. It takes about 3 seconds, and you have to re-up that every month or so. But please try to remember to do that. It costs you nothing. You're already paying for it. So all you're essentially doing is getting the free shipping part of Amazon Prime by getting us paid and getting free Pachter lovin'. So appreciate it if you can do that. Let's get to today's question from SIFTD from Toast9. According to market research firm IDC, sales of PlayStation VR2 are far below projections. It's estimated 270,000 units sold, while Sony's quarterly projection was 2 million, lowered to 1 million after low pre-order figures. It's essentially bombed. Can Sony fix things, and if so, how? How big of a price drop to move the needle? Should Sony make it work with PCs? Is VR basically dead? Well, I'm going to answer those in reverse order. VR's not dead. VR is too expensive, it's too cumbersome, and it's a chicken and egg type of technology. Chicken being the VR technology and the egg being the software, the games that you play on it. And if there's only 270,000 PSVR2 headsets out there, how many copies of a game can a developer expect to sell? 270,000 if he sells to everybody. You can't make a game that makes sense if you only sell 270,000 copies. It takes, 200,000 copies at $50, let's say, is $10 million. I mean, it costs more than that to make a game. So you can't afford to make a game if you're only going to make 10 million in revenue. So chicken and egg is you need more chickens to lay more eggs. And then people will buy eggs, and you don't get eggs without chickens. You don't get software without the hardware. So the future is give it away for free, and that's probably not going to happen. But the future is make it extremely cheap, right? The reason that we all can play games on our phone is we all needed a phone. The reason we all take pictures with our phone is because we have one. So making communications relatively cheap and essential, people can reach you anytime, that encouraged people to buy phones. And the price, you may have paid $1,000 for an iPhone, but you also can get a Samsung Galaxy S, I think 23 or whatever, for free. There's all sorts of free phone plans, and so they made it cheap. Now, everybody doesn't get an iPhone 14, but they get a cheapy, Galaxy for free. So they get you in, they get you hooked, and then once you get all your 100 apps on there and you're addicted to playing games and using all the various apps, you upgrade and get a better phone. So that's how VR is going to work. Same model. Back to, what's the right number? When I did a show on this back in, I don't even know, probably September, October, and somebody asked me what I thought PSVR was going to cost, I think I said $400, and I started at $3, and Shane talked me up to $4, and it came out at $550. Yeah, so it's too expensive, crazy too expensive. A PlayStation 5 is still $500, and so you're talking over $1,000 just to get the hardware to be hooked up. Now, a lot of gamers go, wait a minute, people pay $1,000 for their iPhone. Well, kinda. They kinda do. I mean, I paid, mine's a 13. I paid $400 because I traded in my old one and got $200 credit. And, so if Sony would let you trade in your old PS4 and give you $200 credit and make the price $300, that might, move the needle. But they don't. Right? Maybe GameStop will do that, but they won't give you $200. So the problem is that phones don't really cost $1,000. Like very few people actually spend that much money. No, PlayStation plus PSVR2 costs $1,050. Period. And then you got to buy software. So I think it's really hard. Now the well below projections. I think those are the Bloomberg projections. You know, like I think Jason Schreier is an outstanding reporter, but I think he's the guy who broke that. You know, Sony internally thought they'd do 2 million and then they lowered it to 1 million. Sony certainly never announced 2 million and they never announced 1 million. I think Jason is an outstanding reporter, so I'm not at all suggesting he made those numbers up. But Sony never told anybody. You know, I'm sure Jason has a source. I'm sure they were sincere and truthful, but we don't really know. And who knows that their projection was 2 million that we can make, but God knows what we'll sell unless we price it at $100. If the thing was $100, they would have sold 10 million. You know, if the thing is $300, they probably would have sold 2. And if it's $550, they sold $250,000. I don't know what that projection was in terms of time. Is it for a year? Because they've got 10 months left or 11 months left. They've got a lot, 10 and a half months left. So, you know, my guess is that IDC's right, that they've sold $250,000. And my guess is they'll sell another $250,000 by year end. But it's going to be hard to sell 1 million a year at $550. It's just too expensive. And there's not enough games. So, okay, so 30 games, but if you don't need PSVR 2 to play 28 of those 30 games, then what's the point? I mean, you really do need games that the only way you can play them is to buy PSVR 2. And you need games that you really want to play. So, you know, and again, I played Astrobot on VR1. I love that game. Like, really fun. Totally fun. But would I buy VR2 to play Astrobot again? No. I have my PS4 set up on the 3rd floor, and I have my VR1 headset, and I would just play Astrobot. I don't need to play VR2 to do that. So, answer is they need to drop the price to about $300, and they won't. This is Sony we're talking about. These are the guys who can't afford E3. So if they can't afford to spend $20 million on E3, they can't afford to cut $250 off the price of a hardware unit to sell an incremental million, because that's $250 million in cost. It's 10 E3s for them to cut the price by $250. So they're not going to do it. So the way to fix it is to get the cost down to $300, and they can't. They've obviously packed too much technology into the headset. I'm not sure Oculus can. Oculus is like $400, right? Something like that. And Oculus raised the price because they couldn't make it. They couldn't make a profit. They're not making a profit of $400. So the point is, VR is just expensive. Period. I always thought that the HTC, Vive with the phone in your face thing was a pretty smart solution, because the screen's already taken care of, and you've got the GPU built into the screen, and there's a way to do it, but it's not as good, and honestly, PSVR with 2 independent screens for your eyes is really cool, and honestly, they have ways of tricking your eyeballs, tricking your brain. So it's really clever. Like, they had a lot of really great tricks. And so the tech is massively cool. But are you going to pay $550 to play 2 games? I don't think so. That's the problem. So maybe they'll get a game that's a killer game, like a Call of Duty or a Fortnite, that is VR only, and everybody wants to play it because it's the next thing. But I'd say if I were Sony, I would probably dedicate the resources of some of their internal studios, like the Naughty Dogs, and bring out a whole new Uncharted or a whole new Last of Us just for VR. Last of Us VR would be fun. Like, I actually think Last of Us would be like Resident Evil, marries Uncharted. It would be really fun in VR. Resident Evil on VR was scary. RE7, that was really scary. I couldn't play that game for more than about 10 minutes. I would start sweating. It was honestly jumping out at you. It was really, did you play it in VR? It was hard. It was hard and scary. It was like legit scary. As opposed to a TV screen, something jumps out at you, you look away, and you're like looking at a painting or whatever. This is like, they're all over you. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. If you are a Patreon patron and you're supporting SIFTD directly, thank you so much. If you are a YouTube subscriber, thank you. And if you are an Amazon Prime member and you have linked your Twitch Prime account to your Amazon Prime account, thank you. You should be getting this content real time if you do any of those things. If you have none of those options and you're stuck, just watching this stuff for free, you're getting it a week late, but that's the price you have to pay for Shane schlepping out to my house and taping this. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, and tell me that I shamed you into following me, and I'll give you a shout out on Twitter. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.